Hi, this is Misrepresented for our final Misrepresented talks, and we are live today. We're here to talk about smear tests, and with us we've got Dr. Victoria. She is a public health specialist for Middlesbrough Council. Would you like to introduce yourself a little bit? Tell us about your job.
Hi, I'm Victoria Ononeze, as she said, public health specialist with Middlesbrough Council, and my role is to promote screening. I lead on screening and immunization, and we're here this morning because we want to tell young women that screening saves lives. Cancer cervical screening saves lives, and cervical screening, what I mean by cervical is smear test, what people call smear test. And what does smear test do? It prevents cancer by detecting and treating early changes in the cells of on the cervix, which is the neck of the womb. And the concern is nationally that the proportion of women going for cervical screening is falling. Up to 30% of women in Middlesbrough are not attending cervical screening, and in some parts of Middlesbrough it could be as high as 50%. So this is women are suffering unnecessarily and also dying unnecessarily. This is why we have developed the No Fear campaign, which I have a pack here, which trying to demystify some of the myths and people know, for instance, does it hurt? So which we will be going through as we proceed with this discussion this afternoon. So the bottom line is that cervical screening can save your life and it prevents unnecessary suffering and death.
So basically, as you know, we've teamed up with Joe's Cervical Cancer Trust to help raise awareness for smear tests. So when we were researching for this campaign on Google Trends, we found that a lot of women were searching for stuff like, does it hurt? Can I have it on my period? So what we've decided to do today was pick 10 or 11 myths that are associated with smear tests, and we're going to ask a public health professional so we could get some educational and professional advice for any of you watching that might be avoiding it or might just want to know a bit more about what's going on.
Okay, so we'll start going through each of the myths and hopefully you'll be able to relate to some of them, and maybe we'll answer a few questions for you and help persuade you to go for your smear test. So the first myth is that some women feel that they might not be eligible for the smear test.
So the smear test is available for women aged 25 to 64. So every woman who's aged 25 to 64 who's not had cervical cancer already. So everyone is registered, everyone is eligible, and they are invited to attend for smear through their GP practices. But however, in T's area in particular, we now have cervical smear screening within sexual health services. So when you go for your family planning, say pick up your contraception, you can actually get your smear test done as well in those areas. So every woman, and people are invited when they are 24 and a half, so 6 months to becoming 25. So people have that. So, and to emphasize that people aged 25 to 49 are invited every 3 years, and people who are 50 to 64 are invited every 5 years. So it's important. Just to also emphasize that people who have had the HPV vaccination, which started in 2009, are now becoming eligible for smear tests. So they shouldn't mistake their vaccination to mean that they are free from cancer. So they should be encouraged to go for cervical screening.
So just to be on the safe side, even if you had the vaccination,
even
to go.
The vaccination, you're still eligible because it doesn't stop you from getting there. It helps to prevent cancer, but you still need to attend cervical screening. Yeah.
Okay, so the next myth is, will it hurt?
Some women find it a bit uncomfortable. I find it a bit uncomfortable, but it doesn't hurt.
No.
And it just happens within more than a minute, not more than a minute. So it doesn't hurt. You may feel a bit uncomfortable, but it's what, when you compare with a lifetime of illness or possible death, then it's nothing.
Quick and painless.
Quick and painless.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I find it's a bit uncomfortable, but it's nothing.
It's
nothing major.
It's such a short appointment. You kind of, when you've done it, you think, oh my gosh, what was all the fuss about?
I think there's a lot of anxiety about it, but when you're actually there and then it happens within a minute, you're out of the room. And most times you can also request that a woman does it, so people feel more comfortable if it's a woman, because some GPs also, male GPs can do it, but you have the choice to request whether you want a female or male.
And nurses are so experienced as
well,
aren't
just have a
they?
bit of a
There is they're relaxed about it, because I think that's a lot of people feel a bit embarrassed. Or
and there's a lot of quality assurance around it as well. So the nurses who do it are trained. They have to do so many each year to make sure that they're taking the smears, because if the smear is not, the sample is not good, it's sent back from the lab, and a nurse who takes smears that are constantly returned, actually it's not a good thing. So there's a lot of quality assurance and within the system.
So can I just ask as well, so you have your smear test, then what happens just afterwards for any
afterwards, within 14 days, there's a national target that you should get your results. And if the results suggest there are any changes in the cells of the womb, then you're invited for that test to actually confirm whether there is something there or not. Then if there is something there, then you're treated for it.
Right. Brilliant. So our next myth was actually that you have to go to your GP practice, but you've been very efficient with your answers, so I'm going to skip that one. And the next myth is that women believe that the test will tell them that they've got cancer.
No, it doesn't tell. It doesn't tell you that you got cancer. It's not a test for cancer, but what it does is it actually detects, as I said before, it detects changes in the woman's cervix. That's the neck of the womb, which can then be further investigated to actually find out what it is. And even if it's cancer, it means it's detected early when treatment is effective. So you're not losing either way. So the message is go out there and get the smear test.
Yes.
Okay, so our next one was about the results, but like you said, it's about 14 days, relatively over the phone, or would you have to pop into
you can be checked letter, and then to make it easier, I think some services that actually you can text. So,
Right, so my next one is I don't need to go as I'm not sexually active.
No, every woman is irrespective of whether you're sexually active or not. So every woman who's 25 to 64 should attend cervical screening, to attend for smear. There is no whether you're sexually active or not. Yeah. Yes, people who have multiple sexual partners or who started sex early in their teenage years may be at particular high risk, but every woman, irrespective of whether you're sexually active or not, should attend cervical screening.
Mm-hmm. So the next one we've kind of covered, which is I've had the HPV vaccination, I don't need to go. Is there anything else that you would add to that?
No, just to plead, because the HPV vaccination started in 2009, and the people who had it are now becoming eligible, and it's important to get the message out there that whether if you have had HPV, you're still eligible, you should attend cervical screening.
Well, that was a big eye-opener, because I had it in secondary school as well, and for some naive reason I thought, I might not have to go. I don't know why I thought that, but I will now, when I'm of age.
Because the reason they give you young women are given HPV vaccination is to prevent cervical cancer, the two strains, 16 and 18. So that message is there, but what we're trying to say, yes, you've had that vaccination to protect you, but it doesn't exclude you from attending. You're still at risk of cervical cancer, so you should attend cervical screening.
Yep. Okay, so our next one's a good one. Lesbian and bisexual women don't actually need to be screened.
Just like people who don't have, if they're not sexually active, every woman, irrespective of whether you're sexually active, whether you're lesbian or bisexual woman, should attend cervical screening, because it saves, I can't overemphasize, cervical screening saves lives and is so treatable if it's caught early. So that's the message to get out there. It's heart-rending to see so many women dying unnecessarily or suffering unnecessarily from cervical cancer.
I can't believe the statistics when it says cervical screening prevents around 4,500 every year. That's a lot, isn't it?
Yeah. It is a lot, and the thing is that the early signs, if it's caught early, it's treatable, and then it can be cured. But some of the statistics in T's, for instance, 6 out of 10 people who have been diagnosed with cervical cancer in the area have not attended screening, or haven't attended it in a regular manner,
Yeah.
which is quite shocking that we have people being diagnosed with cancer, cervical cancer, who hasn't bothered in the past couple of years to attend cervical screening. So
Especially when you're saying it's a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
absolutely no time.
Yeah.
So can I just ask as well, like, what do you think some of the reasons are why people don't go?
Some of the reasons are some of the reasons we've been discussing. So people are afraid, but I think in Middlesbrough, for instance, we have people who, some of the work we did to develop the No Fear campaign, people said, oh well, it hurts. Some of the myths, it hurts. I'm afraid of it. It will tell me I have cancer. Or I never bothered about it. It's not a priority for me. It hurts. So these are some of the reasons. And also I think that's also the reason that people actually, they don't see it as a priority. They have other things to worry about, especially in an area like Middlesbrough, where a lot of people living in poverty, a lot of people who have other issues, who health in general, not just cervical screening, who health in general is not a priority for them.
Yeah.
So I think we have to be, and that's why we need to work more closely with local communities, with faith groups, with the BME communities, with young people, to say this is important.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it only takes a few minutes.
And you touched on the smear test finding kind of early
Yes.
abnormal cells potentially. Can you just say what would happen if somebody did have an abnormal result? What would be the next step for them?
The next step for them will be, they'll get the letter anyway, letting them know. They're invited for colposcopy, which is another test to actually examine the cells, the changes in the cells. And if it's confirmed that it could be borderline, and then you're given treatment and monitored regularly. And then if it's actually developed into cervical cancer, then you're treated through just like any other cancer is treated. Any other, whether diabetes or COPD or whatever disease is treated. So the important thing about cancer is it's an aggressive disease. So catching it early is very, very important. Some women will just be monitored to make sure that the changes will not lead, because remember, the smear test is not about it's not about detecting cancer, it's about preventing it, detecting early changes. So some women are monitored to make sure that the changes are nothing nasty, but some women will actually be diagnosed with cancer and then given the appropriate treatment, which may include chemotherapy or radiotherapy and all that.
I would just say on that I've had a smear test and I did have abnormal cells, and I have had those removed, and it was a simple treatment. It was very quick treatment, painless, and you know, when you think of the future, definitely worth it.
It is, and it's, as you said, it's about scraping off the cells, and it doesn't hurt, but it's important that it's caught at that stage, and that is an example, because it was scraped off and treated, and you're now clear and monitored. That's the importance of screening. You can't emphasize it enough. And screening is one of the most effective treatments in the world. Cost effective, clinically effective, because it does what it says on the tin. So young people, young women, let's not suffer unnecessarily. And in Middlesbrough, we've had recent deaths from cervical cancer as well, which was the latest one was dramatized on the BBC Tees, especially a young Asian woman who before she could get the arrangements to go abroad to get the treatment, she died. So it's some people notice they have cervical cancer when they're bleeding from their cervix, from this, so which is advanced. But as you said, in your case, only change is detected and it was scraped off. It didn't require you going for chemo or radio or anything. No. So that's the important message. That is important message for all of us.
Yeah.
It saves really lives, about 4,000 lives a year.
It's amazing.
So there is one of the myths that's left is just so I'm having symptoms, should I wait to be invited? So if someone's having the symptoms of cervical cancer or abnormal cells, what would they do? I'm assuming they wouldn't wait for there to be invited. They'd go straight to their GP.
Go straight to your GP. Go straight to your GP. Don't wait to be invited. Just like if you find a lump in the breast, you don't wait for GP to call you. Because if you wait, because you could find the bleeding just after you've had your cervical screening, and it will be another 3 years before you're invited again. So you have to promptly, just like any, if you have persistent cough, you have to take yourself to GP. If you have a chest pain a chest infection that you can shift with sucking lozenges or taking cough syrup, and then you have to take yourself. You can't wait, especially something like bleeding. It's a serious indication for you to do something about it. You can't sit on it. But some people, unfortunately, some people sit on it and think it will go away, or are afraid of what it might say they have. So they just ignore it, which happens a lot in areas like Middlesbrough.
It's such an important message. So thank you so much for kind of debunking some of those myths, because I think for a lot of people that information on its own will hopefully help them to go for this smear test.
Someone will book on.
And the message to get across as well is that you can go with someone. We are promoting especially for communities, especially new communities in Middlesbrough. We are saying to them, whether it's Asian or Middle East or Eastern Europe, you can have someone accompany you. So
you don't
someone,
have to go through it alone.
You can have someone accompany. You can talk to someone who's had the cervical. You can contact us because there's a website here, cervical screening save lives on your sheet. So there's a lot in there, and we have produced how active we have been in terms of trying to magazine that goes to all the hair salons. So
it's really good, that magazine, because it has a lot of case studies
a lot of case
from
studies
people who have either lost somebody to cervical cancer or have had it themselves.
So people's experience of cervical cancer, and so we are doing a bit, as I said, up to 50% in some parts of Middlesbrough. 50% of women are not attending cervical screening.
Such a high percentage.
It's scary because your health is so important.
Our latest figure is about 70% of, that's the 70% of Middlesbrough. So the national target is 75. Currently, Middlesbrough is about 70%. And within Middlesbrough, in some parts, like you would think Palace or Thorn 3, I don't know whether you're familiar with all the words, it could be as low as 50%. So that's 50% of women not attending cervical screening.
It's such a simple thing that can be done to prevent that,
And what adds to the sadness and also the frustration is the fact that we get those who actually attend this cervical screening, you find out that 6 out of 10 of them, 6 out of 10 who are diagnosed with cervical cancer haven't attended screening in the past or not on a regular basis. And it actually is so...
It could have been prevented going through that screening process.
It is. And as I said, I know sometimes people find it challenging or difficult to get an appointment with their GP. So what I will advise people to do is now we are lucky in TEAS that all our sexual health family planning clinics, Virgin Care, who we have commissioned, you can go there and have your you don't have to go to your GP, so you go to the sexual health clinics, which there's one next door to you, which is the Cleveland Health Center, and people can go onto the Virgin Care website and book the appointment online, so you don't actually have to ring.
So what about people who, because when I was researching it, one of the myths was that people who would turn 25 hadn't received the letter yet and hadn't received the invitation.
They should ring up.
Just ring straight
away. Even if you don't receive a letter, you can still make a phone call and say, I'm this age now.
If you haven't received a letter, which doesn't often happen, but this is
very, very
reality, and the system can get it wrong because it's the system that generates the letter. So if you haven't got it, just ring up your GP. Or go to the sexual health clinic. I think it's important, and I think the emphasis on sexual health is important because, as you probably heard in the news, it's getting more and more difficult to get appointments in general practice.
It is.
Yeah. And for younger people who, especially those students who don't have time, may find the 6 o'clock opening in the Cleveland Health Center for sexual health are more accessible for them. So that's the message. If you haven't received the letter, contact your GP. and talk to mom and dad, who especially have had experience of cervical screening. They'll tell you it doesn't hurt. So that's the message to get out there. It is message to get out there. But the message is it can save lives and unnecessary suffering. It's not a good thing to go through chemo treatment for cancer. So you see people losing their hair and everything. So so if you can prevent that. And it should be a priority for all women. So
Definitely.
it should be a priority for all of us.
We agree, definitely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
So the work, we cannot praise you enough for the work you're doing in the university. So keep the flag flying. And if you need, and if you need any more support from us, we're here. Becky is there, you know, doing all the work and getting all the, if you want more resources, more packets, if you want posters and display for the university, if you're doing an event. For Joe Trust's event, cervical screening, I think it just passed. So if there's cervical screening event you want to do, we can support you with all the information. And if you need our help, we are happy to.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
so much.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and well done for getting the message.
So that's the message to take from today, that a smear test could save your life. So please, 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 if you're due one, book it. Just get it over and done with. It's a couple of minutes.
And let us know once you've booked it so we can monitor the change.
Yes, definitely. But yeah, so that has been Misrepresented Talk for today. Thank you very much for watching.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much.
That was incredible.
That was so